We are
Hey,
live. I didn't even talk to you yet, but we're live.
hey Ramsey, we're
And
live, all right?
we
So
are we are live. I just said that before you say anything, just in case. I
yeah,
know. Hey, how you doing, man?
I'm well, thanks. How you been?
I've been good. Your camera looks good. Your setup looks good. I like it. So, all right. How about we do this? Do you want to introduce yourself? Because I want people to know there isn't a random person on here. It's a friend. So go ahead.
Sure, no worries. Yeah, so Paul Towers, my name. My background's predominantly been in enterprise sales, so an account executive for the past kind of 10 years. But I'm also the most technical salesperson you'll probably ever meet because I have also worn the hat on numerous occasions of being a sales engineer or pre-sales consultant. And more recently, I've actually started my own startup called Oquire, which is building a platform that enables pre-sales teams and sales teams to come together to optimize the qualification and discovery process, ultimately with the goal of delivering a deal-winning demo and shortening that sales cycle.
Nice. And I am an advisor for Acquire, so full disclosure, and I'm happy to be one. So you also sound a little bit different than I do. And, I'm
Yeah,
Lebanese, so I have a Lebanese accent, but where are you from?
yeah. So I'm coming from the other side of the world, Sydney, Australia. So
What a world when, people from across the world, across the globe can actually chat with each other whenever they want,
100%.
as long as they're not asleep. We have Scott seems to be here on the call, so he's uh he's one of the audience. Thank you, Scott, for being here. If anybody else is here, please let us know who you are and where you're from and what you do. So today we're talking about demos. Uh, I'm gonna stop here and say, hey, Paul, what do you think about demos? Like them, hate them? What's your
It's my
opinion?
if I could only ever do one aspect of the entire sales cycle, it would be the demo. I love demonstrating software to customers live in person video calls. It's actually it's the most rewarding part, I think, of the whole process. But obviously they have to be done right, and there's nothing worse than going into a demo without the right information. So
Why do you love doing demos?
I think naturally I love solving problems, and I think if you do a demo right and you understand the customer and their pain points, you're presenting a solution that's actually going to help them, and then that back and forth when the demo goes well and people's eyes light up and you start actually having conversations, it's just rewarding. It's fun. It's exciting. It's like living in the moment. Um,
Yeah, I mean the way I see it, it does sound like the most our job has many different aspects to it, right? As sales engineers and salespeople, the demo is most like a performance. It's like theater
yeah,
that you can get.
yeah,
So if you enjoy theater, you'll enjoy that. I personally, the best part for me is the discovery, because if I don't do that right, my demo's gonna suck,
true,
right? and
true.
and like I feel a lot of people do demos and they don't know what they're gonna show the customer. They don't know what it is. And what I love about the discovery is, if you do a discovery right, you can get the customer excited for the demo. So yeah, I guess.
No, definitely agree. Even it's interesting because you talk about it being a performance. Like my natural social status is more of an introvert,
Yeah,
but I have no problems talking to people, demoing to people. You could be in front of 100 people. Like it's just kind of like this switch that goes in my mind, and I really enjoy the process. Equally, though, I do enjoy the discovery process as well. I really like trying to uncover what like the true pain points or motivations are
yeah,
behind someone's decision. And also, to be honest, like help often, depending on who you're talking to, sometimes you're helping them try and figure out in their mind what the problem actually is. Like they might have a preconceived notion, but that spitballing of ideas and the bouncing back and forward is also really rewarding.
yeah. And if you do the discovery right, even if you have a customer that doesn't like you and doesn't want to be a part of this conversation, if you're asking the right questions and you're listening to their answers and doing the right follow-ups, you can see them change their behavior from
Yeah,
being against you to indifferent to maybe an ally at some point?
Now it's interesting. You kind of remind me of a situation that I had talking to someone in the education sector, and we went in there. Well, I went in there with a completely different, approach. It was more like, hey, here's what we understand about the education sector, the university sector in Australia in particular. Here's some of the things that we're seeing, etc. And at the end of that conversation, we kind of figured out there was no immediate pain point that they needed to solve that our software could help solve. But I'll never forget the guy said to me, you clearly understand our space. If I ever have, any other problem that comes up, I'll contact you, because it's very clear from the conversation that we're having that you're not just rattling off like some talking points. You've taken the time to understand the space. You've taken the time to understand what I'm telling you. And we've had like this fruitful conversation. So even though there's no immediate next step in terms of, hey, we could use your software, it's been valuable. Like we've had a good hour-long chat, right? And that to me is a successful outcome, even if you don't necessarily, get to the next step of being able
Yeah.
to demo because there's no alignment.
I have a story about the flip side of that, where it's not mine. I met a friend of mine right now, recently, who told me about the experience he had with a sales engineer, and he was asking that sales engineer questions, and the sales engineer was it was obvious to that person that the sales engineer didn't know what they were talking about, but they were still pushing. They were still pretending like they knew the answers too. And at which point he had just avoided them like the plague. So, yeah.
No, interesting. I think like sales engineers, pre-sales consultants, you kind of have to be curious by nature, and even if it's different industries, different products, like you have to spend the time. And obviously you're never going to be like I'm never going to be an expert in education, but the way I kind of like distill it down, you have to know enough where you could have an hour and a half conversation with someone,
Yep.
and not run out of things to talk about. Like if financial services, same thing. Like we sell into that space all the time. I can have an hour and a half conversation with you. Could I have a 6-hour conversation? No, but like I don't need to, right? Like I need to just know enough and show that I care enough and have spent the time to kind of understand, what's happening in the industry and be on top of some of those trends that are happening. And some of those things are going to be relevant for the demo. Some of those things are just going to be relevant for building credibility.
And so, like, I like to differentiate, and we haven't even jumped into the demo yet, but I like to differentiate being an expert in the industry and be an expert in your customers, right?
Sure.
We're selling into different industries. We're not going to know all of it, but we know the common pains that our customers have, and we can, if you're curious and if you ask the right questions, I find conversations with one-on-one fairly easily because I can just ask questions. I don't even have to say anything most of the time.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why I have a podcast. Okay, so I want to discuss a little bit about the demo. Actually, let me ask you this before we jump in and share my opinion. When do you do the demo?
It's a good question, because obviously you often have the pressure from the sales team to, hey, this customer wants to see a demo. So in my eyes, like the ideal step is that there's been at least some initial conversation with the customer from a sales lens, right? Then that salesperson should be lining up in that call that there's going to be a need for a deeper discovery session with our pre-sales consultant sales engineer, right? And they need to position it as a value add in that, we want to take the time to really understand more about your business. Once you've done that, I'm happy to jump into a demo, so kind of like it'd be like the third call, I guess. If it's a larger, more enterprise grade situation, multiple different stakeholders, I'm not afraid to say, hey, like we might need to have a discovery session with, 2 or 3 different departments or 2 or 3 different people to understand all their perspectives. That's the short answer.
No, but that's good, and that's how I thought for a long time. And then I talked to a gentleman. He's the head sales engineer at Proverity, David McCauley. And we were discussing. I was telling him like, "Hey, demo should come after this, and we shouldn't do a demo unless there's a discovery." He's like, "There's different areas to do demos," and he kind of shifted the way I thought. So I'm just gonna share my screen real quick here. we've been brainstorming for a few weeks now, so you see there's a lot of stuff. So I just copied the sales cycle down here. I'm started thinking of like a demo or teaching about the product like a movie, right? Where the demo is the actual movie. But how do you get people to come and see a demo? There are like teaser trailers, and then full trailers, and then trailer number 1, trailer number 2. There's the R-rated trailer, right? Which made me kind of shift the way I think about demos. I used to think demos should come after discovery, and you could have 1, 2, 3, 4 meetings before you do the demo.
I mean, I agree with that as well, because like, and maybe it's just terminology, but I'm also a very big believer in like content marketing as a strategy and providing value, right? So maybe I view those things more of like a marketing type exercise where, like someone wants to get a 5-minute snippet of the high level value props of what you and your platform can do. That should be readily available. Obviously there's also demo automation platforms and that kind of thing as well that can play a role.
So I think like when a lot of times how the best way to get leads is by, I'm calling it a demo, but it's content marketing really. Right? And that's something that usually the marketing team does. But I find sales engineers great at telling stories for a specific situation. So like here, I've seen people use like Navatic or Walnut, something like that, which I like the software. I don't think it's good for lead generation. Right. Like, I think it's more for training. It's more useful for training or for the POC, POV to get the customers up and running.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it also depends on the size and complexity of the solution you're selling. I think the other area where it comes into play is, if you do have a salesperson who has what they define as an opportunity, but it's maybe not really qualified well, maybe they don't quite have the budget, or hey, they don't need something for 12 months time, they're not even ready to talk. If you have something that you can send them to give them a taste without needing to, have a sales engineer or pre-sales consultant do a ton of work, those kind of platforms I think have their place there too. Or a longer form, like 15 or 20-minute video webinar demo type thing that you could send them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, but I also think SE should be doing those, not marketing, personally.
Well, SE should do them, but then, marketing might make them available on like a landing page or something, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at Consensus, by the way, CAAE family, good to have you here. Appreciate you being here. What was I saying? I lost my trail of thought. All for
Consensus, marketing should.
So like we were talking about the lead. I think the lead, instead of using Navatic or something, it should be like a video, YouTube video or Vimeo, whatever. Especially if it's a non-complicated product, right? It'll be on their website. Why do I say that? Navatic is great to show you where to click and where to go. Not just Navatic, these software, where to click and where to go if you want to achieve something. But if I'm coming onto the website newly and trying to figure out like what does the software even do, I don't care about clicking every button. I want the story of what problems it's solving for me.
No, 100%. I mean, if you just think about how, obviously with my startup Acquire, I'm actively using lots of different technology for a wide variety of things. My default is I go to the homepage, I scroll down, is this hitting the right value props for me? If it is, I then normally click the pricing page to make sure it's in budget. If it is, I then go back to the homepage or go to a solution page, and I do see, is there like a 2-minute or a 5-minute demo so I can get, a bit of an understanding.
Exactly.
And then after that, I create an account. Obviously, they're more self-service type tools, but if you think about that in an enterprise setting, people want to do that high-level qualification before they pick up the phone, or submit their details or download a PDF white paper or something, right? So you need to be able to solve for that problem early.
To clarify, you're saying the customer is doing some initial qualification.
Yes.
Yeah. So not because we always talk about the sales team qualifying the customers. The customers need to qualify us, and doing that, if it's a complicated product and you have a million different products, then you're gonna have to create a lot of content. uh, but it's still a good way to actually
Yeah.
help them qualify you in or out. If they can do that qualification for you, they're saving you some trouble. I know some companies want the control. They want the option to. There's a spider. They want the option to actually jump in and convince the customer that they're a good option. But it depends how busy you are. You may not want that as well.
Yeah, and I mean, if you could have it, if you could choose between, hey, I'm getting a bunch of leads that haven't done any level of qualification themselves versus I'm getting a bunch of leads and they've at least qualified that our solution might be a fit.
Yeah.
I know what bucket of leads I'll be taking every day of the week, right?
Yeah, and like then we get to like we were talking about qualification. I think qualification can have its own like qualified demo. You know, a consensus calls it like a demo qualified lead. If you specifically if you use consensus, and I'm not affiliated with them, I've never used their product, so I can't really say how good it is or it's not. But a friend of mine works there. His name is Mark Green, great guy. I'm assuming it's a good product just because he's there. The way they do it is they send the salesperson meets with the customer, and then after that they send them a demo video. Who built it? That usually it's a sales engineering team.
Yeah.
And
no, I mean, yeah.
Go ahead.
I think obviously my gut is it depends on the type of product, et cetera, et cetera. But I also feel that this is where that demo that for that prospect or that lead who, maybe the salesperson walks away from that first call and like, look, I'm not really sure if they got the right budget. I'm not really sure if the time frame aligns. At least instead of saying, hey, like there's nothing I can send you, you've got something, right?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It's never one size fits all. And that's the thing that I think a lot of companies have to build is when do you send this like qualification demo? When do you bypass it and go straight to demo? These are criteria that they need to create, because sometimes sending a qualified demo may lose you the deal just because you didn't answer the right question in the demo, or maybe they didn't like the sound of the person talking, right? And it's very different doing a demo in front of a bunch of people versus doing it on your own to your camera, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've done that. You've done both.
Yeah, 100%.
Which one's more fun for you?
Oh, the in-person, obviously. I mean, when I think of all the best demos I've done, I've obviously gone in with a plan and of what I want to show, but then it's that ad hoc commentary and the feedback and the live where they're like, hey, we actually have this problem, or hey, Paul, you showed us how we could do X, Y, and Z, but can we do this as well? Or how would you, even better question, they start asking you, hey, we also have this problem. How would you solve that with your technology? And I'm like, give me all those questions. They're great, because one thing I do like doing, I mean, obviously I have a script and I have an idea, but I don't mind going on the fly as well.
Yeah. But again, the goal of this demo is to get you to, I say every meeting you meet with a customer, you're just earning the right for the next meeting. You're earning the trust to get the next meeting. And that's the goal of the qualification demo. You're not going to sell anything from sending this. Right?
Agree.
You might get them more interested, or you might just turn them off completely.
Well, that's where it's also a people and process thing, though, right? Your sales team need to know that sending that qualification demo isn't designed to close the deal.
Yeah.
It's designed to get the next meeting.
Yeah.
As using your movie analogy, right? Like it's the long cut trailer or something, right?
Yes.
You've seen the 60-second snippet maybe on the website. You've had a conversation, maybe not quite ready, but now we're going to send you the 3 or 4 minute, trailer video of that movie and try and get you amped up to buy that ticket to come see the full screening.
Yeah. And I think this is very useful in startups specifically, mainly because they don't have as many SEs. And the one SE that they have is supporting 20 to 30 salespeople is not going to have time to jump on every demo. So someone's gonna, the SE is going to have to build these videos or whatever, so that the sales team can share, specifically for smaller deals. Like if you're if if you have deal sizes that vary from 10K to 300K, the SE is going to jump on maybe any deal that's 50K or higher, and they're not going to have time to jump on.
And I can say this as a salesperson as well. Like when you think about at a management level, right? The last thing you want is your sales team coming up with the excuses as to why they didn't hit target, and it being, well, we couldn't do a demo, or I didn't have
Yep.
anything to send them.
Yep.
At least if you can say, well, hey, you've got this, and if they watch that and engage with that, yes, maybe we then go to that personalized demo. You kind of remove some of those like things that salespeople fall into the trap of saying as to why they're not hitting target or.
Well, yeah, and that excuse that we didn't have anything to sell them is complete and utter crap, because they can always build something to sell.
Yeah,
they can use Loom, Screencast-O-Matic. I think they changed the name to ScreenPal, Zoom, whatever. You can just go on and record a 5-minute video to show them, hey, this is a customized, personalized video, right? Like, hey, Paul, we just had this conversation. Thank you for your time. These are the problems that you mentioned to me. This is a quick, brief overview of how we can help you with it. I mean, you and I did that as well.
Yeah. I mean, you also get onto the other point. Like, I'm probably in a bit of a different camp than most people, but I feel that salespeople also need to be able to do, like, even if you have a sales engineering team, your sales team need to be able to demo to a degree the platform. Maybe not to the same extent, but again, they need to be able to have that 5 or 10-minute demo that they could do, even if it's just so that they know how to explain the product better and that kind of thing. But in your situation, hey, sales engineer's too busy, can't do anything. Why not fire up a Loom, do a 5 or 10-minute video and just be like, hey, Ramsey, great conversation that we had, yesterday. I put together this video so that you can share it with your team. And, based on our conversation, I understand that your 3 main pain points are X, Y, and Z. Here's how we could solve them in the video. If we still see alignment, we've got, Paul, our sales engineer, he can come in and do a much more personalized demo. But I wanted to get this to you now so that we can continue to build on the conversation we're having.
And exactly. Well, again, so that's the thing. What we're trying to do here is we're talking about all the back end and front end processes. What is your process? Is your product simple enough that the salesperson can demo? Is it complicated enough that you even need an SE? Right? Like, there's a demo flow. I don't know if you've heard of it, or Gondola. I think it's been acquired, but it was a simple tool to help sales teams present and demo. They did not need sales engineers. The salespeople did the demo. So sales engineers are not the answer to everything. If it's not technical, don't hire one. But if the product's simple enough, or at least the demo is simple enough, the basic demo, can the salesperson do it? And if they can, then they should do it. If they can't, then have the SE do the recordings and send them.
What's your view, though, like, just to riff on that, right? Like, so salespeople can have really good skill sets in finding opportunities, and I've worked with some people who are really excellent, right? Excellent at that first part. They can find ops, they can qualify them well, but they're not maybe as strong on the presentation side.
Okay.
So even if the product's simple, kind of like, you think about like a marketing team that go in to pitch for a new account. Sometimes they have the people who sit behind the scenes, who work out all the numbers, and then they have someone, a guy or girl, and their job is just to pitch. So even if it's a simple product, do you wheel out, your all-star who can present really well and nail the presentation, even if it is a simple product, and you leave your sales team to focus on what they need to do, which is finding new business and closing deals?
Well, the question then lies, do you have somebody else to do the demo?
Yeah, you need that other person in that situation.
Yeah. So I'm an advocate of let the expert do their job, right?
Yeah.
You're an expert in finding deals. That's all I want you to do. I'm an expert in doing a technical discovery. That's what I want to do. I'm not an expert in negotiation. I don't want to do that. Like, whoever is an expert, you do that, right? You don't hire a point guard. Do you play basketball?
No, I don't.
What's
Could you use
sport?
an NFL analogy? Or?
All right, fine. You don't hire a running back to play quarterback.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Right. Australia. I was worried you're going to say cricket or rugby, and I didn't know the rules for either one. So yeah, like get the expert to do their job. and that's something I find. I've talked about this earlier. Sometimes companies hire sales engineers to do post-sales work.
Yeah.
So they're looking for the pre-sales skills, and then ending up giving them post-sales work, and they're not the same, right?
No, I agree.
We could do it. A lot of pre-sales and a lot of sales engineers came from post-sales, but they moved away from post-sales for a reason. They don't want to do that work. So if you hire them and send them back to do that, so bottom line is hire for the skills that you're looking for and let them do that job. Let them do what they're good at. Let's
Yeah.
support. Let sales engineers be sales engineers, salespeople be salespeople. And welcome from Florida, CAA. I don't know how to K. You asked me a question on YouTube. I will respond to you. I did not forget that on the other on the other video. So yeah. So these are the two things. Yeah. Who should do the demo? I mean, if you have an SE that sucks at doing demos, don't let the SE do demos. Right?
Yeah, that's a pretty critical skill set of your SE, though. If they're not going to demo, so maybe they need a bit of training or to be moved on.
I haven't done a demo in a long time. I sell most of my stuff without having to do demos. Right? And if I have to do a demo, usually it's such a alpha load. Like we don't even have the software released. I can't even do the demo if I wanted. So I have to bring product management in to do the demo anyways. Right? And one skill that we don't talk about is leveraging people. Like if you're a salesperson and you're great at closing, at finding deals, getting customers interested, but you're not great at the presentation, maybe now it's your process, because there's a company process and then there's each individual process from within it based on their strengths. Now, is the individual process to leverage somebody else to come and do the presentation. And also, when you're hiring someone, like if you're gonna hire an SE to be great at one thing, don't force them to be great at something else, or think if it's worth it to train them to be great at something else. Scott, who are you asking about the damage from the storms? Do you have storms, Paul, in Australia?
I think it's is it the CAAE family saying they're from Naples in Florida?
Is there a storm in Naples now?
I don't know. All I know is there's a storm in Florida.
Oh man,
I don't know where Naples is in Florida, so
yeah, I'm so out of touch. All right. Well, I hope you're safe. Oh, well, I'm assuming if you're here, you must be safe. Otherwise, you're a dedicated listener. I appreciate that. Okay, and then I guess the demo obviously comes where we say it's here. Right. So let me ask you. I mean, we're glad to hear that. It was minimal on our end. That's great news. Okay, all right. Focus, Rand. I'm learning to do these these YouTube lives, and I'll be talking about something. I see something in the chat, and then all of a sudden I'm like, "What was I talking about?" I want to answer that question, but I forgot. Yeah.
All good.
So, what is the process of you saying yes or no to a demo?
That's a good question, mate. For context, we're a smaller team at the moment. It's quite an unusual situation that I have in my day job. I am the local manager, and I have 2 account executives who sit within my team, but I'm also the sales engineer because we haven't backfilled for that role yet. So I'm kind of across every deal that we have at quite a granular level. But for me, the criteria is, first of all, do we have something that can solve their pain point, right? Like, there's no point demoing if we can't actually help them.
Where do you find that out?
From the discovery, right?
Okay.
Asking the right questions, understanding their company, understanding kind of, who they are, what they're trying to achieve. Obviously budget also comes into it. Now, I don't necessarily prescribe to the idea that they need to have, a budget 100% locked in, funding committed, that kind of thing. It's more so as a qualifier of, let's just say we're selling a solution that's going to cost $100,000.
Yeah.
Just at least knowing that that's within the realm of possibility for them. and they're not thinking it's a $5,000 solution. So you can get there a number of ways. Hey, our product's normally around $100,000. Is that in line with something that you've implemented previously? Is that within the scope of what you'd be looking at securing for budget for this product or project? Sorry, go on.
Just quickly on that, we've talked. Like you and I have talked to people who say Bant is dead or Medic is dead. Nobody wants to answer these questions. Customers can see straight through it. But we're not. Just to clarify, we're not sitting and if anyone's not familiar, BANT stands for budget, authority, need, and timeline. We're not sitting in front of the customer and asking, do you have budget?
No.
Do you have a need? When do you want to buy? And can you buy? Like, we're not sitting there asking those questions. We're having conversations with the customers. And we're having conversations, and based on the conversation, we're extracting that information. It might not be straight out like, hey, what are your thoughts about, like, what are the price range you're looking at in this situation? Because that's how much it usually costs. Is that good? Right. And also, if it's an enterprise deal, that's something to talk about in the process. If it's an enterprise, I don't mind taking unqualified calls, like from a budget perspective, all day long. Right.
Yeah, I mean it's there's so many different things that people sell, right? And there's so many different companies that you can sell to. But yeah, if I'm getting a call from in Australia we call it like the ASX top 200, right? The top 200 listed companies in Australia, or the top 50 companies, or one of our big four banks. Like, okay, I'm going to treat that a lot differently because I know they're used to buying software at a certain size and scale. To be honest, I actually qualify I'm more open to sharing our costs up front, or like what we might be looking at with a much smaller company. Hey, we're a 20 or 30 person company. Could they use the software that we sell? Yes. Is it likely that they're going to have the budget? No. So in those situations, I might be like, hey, Ramsey, look, I think our software can really solve the pain point that you've articulated and the problems that you have. Just for context, though, the solution that we sell, it's typically in the scope of $100,000 to $150,000. Again, is that something you're looking at? And sometimes they want to save face and they're like, oh yeah, but you can kind of read between the lines and know that it's a lot more than they expected. Other times they're like, hey, look, that's way out of budget. We're looking at something that's $5,000 to $10,000. And I'm like, hey, look, we're not a fit. If I can help you in some other way, though, and point you in the direction of another solution that might be, in that range, I'm happy to do it. But yeah, like I've moved on from, doing demos to every single person who comes across us with like, I've got some problem, because, time's precious and we can't do them all.
That's where the qualification demo comes in.
And that's where, now you're using your process and that's where you could definitely leverage that.
And also, as sales engineers, we're not too much involved in this, right? Like if the salesperson tells the customer, like, hey, it's between 100, whatever, and the customer says, sure, but you kind of tell that it's out of their price range. At that point, the sales engineer might not even be involved in the call, right? Or the salesperson is going to try to set up the demo. The SE is busy doing other things, so it might not really affect the SE whatsoever. It's not until the salesperson comes to the SE and says, like, hey, come and do the demo, right? There's this book called Just Effing Demo, where the salesperson just comes to the SE and say demo, and the SE is not allowed to ask questions. Good SEs ask a lot of questions, especially if they're not involved in the discovery call.
I mean, me and you've spoken about it before, right? Like, how often I've seen plenty of situations where a salesperson will send a Slack message or an email to the SE and be like, hey, you've got a demo tomorrow. Here's 4 dot points of what they're interested in. Now, could I do a demo with that? Yes. But the question is that setting yourself up to deliver the best possible demo? And clearly the answer to that is no. Yeah. And the thing that I find really surprising, and like why like companies don't care about this more, is think of how much time, money, and effort goes into creating marketing content to acquire a lead, to then have that lead qualified by an SDR or a BDR, maybe even beforehand, before it goes to an AE. The AE does it. So you spend all this time and effort, and then you like just drop the ball at the last minute and you think it's okay to do like some, here's 3 or 4 dot points, like just do a demo for me tomorrow and like, let's hope and pray for the best. Like that's not setting yourself up for success at all.
So I've had that situation. I think I've told you that story as well, where my salesperson set up a demo for me like in 2 days, an interop demo, and uh, great. Someone learned that recently. So, welcome to the sales club. You might also want to look at Medic and MedPick if you're interviewing, so that if someone asks a question, you're able to answer that. I never remember what they stand for, so I wouldn't worry about memorizing it, but just understand the gist. Uh, so, yeah, I mean, I had the power to say no, and that's something. Does the SE management team provide the SEs the power to say no? Another thing to think about is what's the turnaround uh,
Yeah.
from when the customer requests the demo to the actual demo. I mean, the more complicated the product, the longer it takes, but also the less sales engineers, the longer it takes. The less information, the longer it takes, because the less information I have, the more I have to prepare for the demo in case something happens. Right. So,
And I
if
think
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that's why sometimes it's hard for organizations to work out this process, because it's not a one size fits all the time, right? Like the solution I currently sell is very complex. It can take 2 weeks to build a demo if you really wanted it to, and that. Whereas if you're selling more of a SaaS solution that, maybe it's a few hours to configure things and change some names around and make the data look more relevant to them, obviously that's a much different time commitment, and I'd be more open to doing demos at a lower qualification bar. But yeah, if you're asking me to spend like, I don't know, 40 hours over the next 2 weeks building some highly customized demo, that's a huge amount of time, and it's a huge cost to the business in terms of my wage. So you need to make sure it reaches a higher bar, it has a higher level of qualification.
Yeah, and it's never one size fits all, right? The process at your company could be very different than the process at mine, but there should be a process, right? And I think processes are there. You remember Seinfeld where you had the soup Nazi?
I've never watched Seinfeld in my life.
Yeah, maybe you should just watch the clip called it's about the soup Nazi, where you walk in, you have to walk into it's a restaurant. Soup Nazi is a restaurant owner who sells soup to people in New York, and people have to file in a certain way. They have to move in. They have to order in a specific way, and if they don't do it right, he kicks them out. That's not what a process is.
No,
but a process is a guide to help you get to where you want to get to. But sometimes you have to deviate from the process, as long as it's the exception and not the norm. Like if the norm is to always have a qualified deal before doing a demo, I will make an exception to that if like my whale of a customer comes to me and says like, hey, we don't have the money yet, we're looking into it, but we're interested in learning more about the products. Like, yeah, I'll do demos for you all day, man. Like,
I 100% agree with that. Process is important, but you can't always have like a super rigid rule. It ultimately, at the end of the day, the decision you make has to be in the best interest of the company that you work for, the business, right? And if you have this big whale of account who's like, hey, we just want to learn more, I agree. You'd be crazy not to at least entertain showing them something.
So I think like the decisions we make, we have to take our company's best interest in mind. We also obviously have to take the customer's best interest in mind. But a third factor here is the salesperson's not best interest, but we're working with human beings who may make our lives difficult or make it very easy. So if I have to do something that I don't want to do, but it will help me build a relationship with my salesperson, I will do it.
Yeah, I mean that's an emotional intelligence part, right? As well, and there's lots of different situations. Hey, maybe the account executive's new to the company. Maybe you give them a little bit more rope because you're like, hey, they're going to get value from seeing the demo anyway. I need to help them out. Or maybe, hey, you've got an account executive who's really struggling to hit their quota. And again, I'm not saying you just do it for the sake of it, but maybe you give them a little bit more guidance and you say, look, at this stage, we can't really commit to doing a demo, But if you can get this customer to do these 2 or 3 things, that will raise the bar enough where it, it warrants it. And maybe it's something like, hey, at the moment, the person you're asking me to demo to is just the marketing manager. If you can get the CMO on the call, that's another level of qualification, right? They're committing their time. Or, hey, they don't have a set budget yet, but can you go and find out, have they implemented solutions in the same kind of price range? And if the demo was to go well and we were able to solve this pain point, who's the person who'd be responsible for signing off on that budget? Can we have a conversation with them, or can we get them on the demo? Like, these are all these kind of like gray areas, right? Where
we're trusted engineers. We're trusted advisors. If you look at the book by John Kerr, he talks about being a trusted advisor to the customer. But we also need to become trusted advisors to the sales team.
Internal. Yeah.
Right? And the product management. And basically, not to toot SE's horns, but we have to act like the glue that holds everybody together, because we're translating between sales and customer success and sales and product management and professional services and the customers. Right? So that's kind of 100%. Our job. So, and companies, the reason I started this live channel is I've talked to a lot of startups, and I've been on a call with a startup that had 7 people on it. Basically, everybody who worked at the startup was on the call, and I'm like, "You're an engineer. I'm happy to have you on the call. Could you be doing something else with this time? Okay. You're the CEO. I'm happy to meet you. Could you be doing something else on this call? Like, why is it everybody on every call? When are you doing the work? If you're on every call with every customer, who's doing the work? Okay. Or maybe you're just burning out like burning the candle on both ends. Is that what they say?
Yep. No, here for sure. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost 9:00 Eastern time. Oh no, I hate Star. Okay. Here's what I just said that. So Scott was talking about Star is another level, another one I've learned about: the situation, task, action, result. From what I've seen, people, when they do that, they're very factual. Right? They talk about facts. This was the situation. I was angry with someone. This is what I had to do. This is what I did, and that's the outcome. People don't remember any of that. People want a story. Right? If you want to use Star, use it in the form of a story. Like I see a lot of people doing that in interviews. Like, no, tell a story. Like, what was the
stories of
emotion behind it? People remember emotions, how you made them feel. I'll never bring it up again.
Yeah. When you talk about demos, right? Like, really, you're a storyteller, and even if you're going through a series of steps or features, obviously you don't just talk to features, talk to the value they provide in that. But humans have always told stories.
Yeah.
So weaving that into the demo is hugely valuable. And just to kind of touch on these frameworks, whether it's BANT, MEDPIC, MEDIC, whatever, at the end of the day, they're all just designed to help you understand the customer.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you can throw out all those frameworks and just go like, how do I understand the customer, the situation they're in, and collect all this other information that's going to help me qualify the deal and be armed with the information that I need to do a good demo, to progress the deal, right? That's really what all these things boil down to. So you make your own framework or your own set of questions. You don't need to follow these things religiously. And I think you're right. Like, because of the way some of these frameworks are created, even when you were talking before about BANT, you don't sit there and go, BANT, it doesn't need to be linear.
Oh, wait, someone answered N before T. What do I do?
Yeah. And it's funny, like I've had people call me before as well, more from a call center type thing where they're trying to sell more of a, transactional thing. And you can tell they've got this list of questions, and
it's a script.
It's a script. And if you don't answer, if you don't answer one question the way their script says, they just fall apart, right?
Or even worse, they just keep going with the script.
Yeah.
Like,
you say, no,
are you interested
I'm not
in talking about? Are you interested in talking about this? No. Oh, great. Thank you for being interested. Dude, I just no. But yeah, all right. We're almost at the end of time. Paul, this has been great. We should do it again.
100%.
Yeah, no, this was good. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you inviting me on. It's great to be able to talk about, again, just sit. It's almost like a round table, just between two of us sitting down, having a chat, sharing our views. And as I was saying, like there is that no one size fits all. So we've talked about a lot of ideas, and we've talked about a lot of things that we believe in. But you got to, if people are listening to this, watching this back, you got to think about what's the solution you're selling, the complexity of the solution, the size of your team, what stage you're at as a company, as an organization. There's so many different things that go into it. But yeah, hopefully some people have picked up a few insights from this. And yeah, thanks again for having me on. Really do appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Everyone should go check out Oakwire. If you're interviewing for a role, use Oakwire to track your job interviews. I don't know what it's used for,
You
but
could definitely, if I was doing an interview and you want to use Oquire, you could demonstrate how you could be a better sales engineer by using the tool, and have a few of the companies that you're interviewing, their competitors,
yeah,
kind of using the battle cards there or something like that. So
yeah, we need to you need to come on the podcast and we can discuss Oakwire more and why you did everything you did.
yeah,
Uh,
sounds
thank
good.
you,
Thank you.
thank you everybody for being here, Scott, CAA family. I'm sure there's a few others that came in and dropped off. Appreciate your time, and I'll catch you next time. Good night
Thanks again. Bye.
or good evening, good afternoon for you.
Yeah, still morning.